Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 233 today of Level Up. 60 minutes, of course, of live Q&A where your questions really do drive the show. Now, if you're watching over on YouTube, then you can, of course, find out so much more about what we do in our channel. So do give this video a like and subscribe, of course, to find out more about APMG International. Ella today, if you're joining live, is over in the social chat. She's had a little holiday and she's back from that. So do please welcome her back to work with a cheery hello. Let her know your name, please, and the city from where you're joining. That would be really brilliant. She's going to post some links in so that you can vote up the questions that you would most like the panel to answer. And of course, for you to be able to add your own as well. Now then, if your question's selected, then your name will appear in the credits at the end of the show, and quite right too. So do get those questions in early and stay with us to see all of that happening. Now, I think it's true to say that everybody enjoys giving a gift almost as much as receiving one, and especially if the recipient themselves are pleased and delighted and excited, when we give it to them. Becoming a trainer provides a daily opportunity for gift giving to happen, and also to be paid, of course, for doing it. With technology development accelerating and professional development needs at an all-time high, there's never been a better time, I think, to join the profession and build our skills as a professional educator. So how do you get started? And importantly, once started, do you maintain that leading edge capability, grow your skills and remain relevant? Our panel is here to help us. So let's jump straight in and meet them all. Cindy Hancock rejoins today. She is, of course, an international trainer and instructional designer over at Phlox Training in South Africa. Cindy blends leading edge instructional design techniques with passion and enthusiasm, supporting a wide range of clients, including the United Nations and the Non-Violence Project Foundation. Cindy mentors and coaches a wide range of people from all over the world. Welcome back to Level Up, Cindy.
Thank you so much. Wonderful to be here, especially on the topic so close to my heart.
Absolutely right. Sarah Hills joins us today. She's, of course, the business owner at both Carpe Omnia Training and also CUPE International. Sarah's award-winning work reaches clients both in the UK and all over the world. Leading a growing team of professional trainers and coaches, she's committed to the purpose of delivering outstanding education and training services. Welcome back to Level Up, Sarah.
Really lovely to be here. Hello to all the audience. Very much looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Johann Botha rejoins today. He is, of course, a very experienced trainer, coach, and digital change provocateur. As the CEO of getITright in Johannesburg, South Africa, Johann and his team specialize in helping his clients build their digital capability. He's also the author of the Adapt Business Agility Method. And in his career, I think it's fair to say he's probably helped thousands of people now improve their employability with courses and professional development and so on. Welcome back to Level Up, Johann.
Thanks for the invite, Nick, and thanks for the opportunity to talk about something that I don't talk about often. And that's most probably my biggest passion.
Absolutely right. So we're looking forward to it. Ron Leeman rejoins today. He is the founder of the Highway of Change, where he consults with clients across the world from his base in Thailand. A pragmatic change manager, I think it's fair to say. Ron tells things how they are and is not afraid to speak truth to power to help them manage tricky situations. Welcome back to Level Up, Ron.
Yeah, thank you very much. How did I get that name, Nick? Saying the things as they are. Welcome from sunny, hot, and very humid 81% Thailand. I hope I don't melt away.
Goodness me. Well, in the UK, we're used to 81% humidity as the rain falls from the sky, but unfortunately not with those kinds of temperatures. So perhaps we're better off. I'm not sure. Mart Rovers joins. He leads the team, of course, at INTERPROM and is a regular contributor to both Level Up and a growing YouTube community, actually, with his series called Inspired on the INTERPROM YouTube channel. So do check that out. Across the US and Europe, INTERPROM deliver a range of coaching, advisory, and training services to their clients. Welcome back, Mart.
Nick, thanks so much for having me, and it's great to be back on the show. And I'm not biased, as in training is the best job out there. But I think what underlines this is a very short quote that I found that says, "Teaching is the greatest act of optimism."
Fantastic. Yeah, there's that marvelous phrase, isn't there? You know, it's a joke, really. It just says, "I've taught you all I know, and still you know nothing," said the trainer to the student. Anyway, let's move on. Thank you very much indeed. Etienne Chardlot completes our on-screen panel today. He's the CEO of Symphonise Consulting, where he focuses on consulting and training services. Also based in Johannesburg, he works with government and private sector clients on digital transformation, and Etienne delivers amazing value, outstanding value, I would say, to each and every client. Welcome back to Level Up, Etienne. Lovely to see you.
It's very good to be back. And we were talking about the humidity in Thailand. It's a nice overcast day in sunny South Africa today. So good to be here.
All right. Okay. Well, up on the high plains of Johannesburg, it's less humid generally, I think, I would suggest, than Thailand. But I've only been there a few times, but it's always been a pleasure. Now, our question master for today, we can't run Level Up without questions from the audience, and we can't manage the questions from the audience without the question master. So Suchitra is joining us today from Bangalore in southern India. Welcome back, Suchitra. Great to see you.
Hello, Nick, and hi to the panelists and our viewers. Yeah, great to be back again, and I'm very much keen to ask questions for today's topic. Yeah.
Well, you know us, we might rope you in to answer a few as well, actually.
I don't mind.
As we kind of go along. But I think your role's busy enough to manage all of the incoming activity. So very good, everybody. Let's jump straight in then, I think, Suchitra, and let's put our first question, please, to the panel, if we can.
Sure. So first question is from our panelist, Cindy. In your experience, what are some common challenges that new trainers face, and how can they overcome them?
Yeah, it's a great question, Cindy, and it's one that we have to cast our minds back a little to our early careers, if you like, to try and recall and remember that. Johann, in your experience, what are some of the common challenges that you witness a new trainer might face?
I think self-confidence. You know, we may be very confident that we know our stuff, but the moment you are put in front of an audience, it's a different situation. And I think the best way to overcome that is just to go with the flow. You know your stuff. If you know you can contribute to somebody, you can help them, you can add value to them, and just do it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. I do agree with you. You need to be confident because you're guiding, you're facilitating, you're leading the learning. And so you do need a little bit of confidence in order to be able to get that working properly. Sarah, your thoughts, please. Then we'll go to Ron.
Not surprisingly, I was going to say confidence being the main factor there. And it's inevitable that when you start off, you're not going to have that. So just, recognise that. And actually vulnerability throughout your training career is always going to be good. And sometimes actually enabling the room to speak, shows that you can also open to other people, perhaps knowing a little bit more and getting them to open up as well. So also at the beginning of my training, I very much wanted to know my audience more than perhaps I need to now, to also have that planning, which was important to me when I started out.
It's a good point, isn't it? Asking questions, at the beginning. With experience, you can probably narrow that down a little bit so that the questions don't take too long to get through. But I do think it's still good practice to understand, whereabouts your audience might be and where are they coming from and what their expectations might be of the class and so on. It's a good icebreaker activity, isn't it, to get going on. So thank you, Sarah. That's really great. Ron, your thoughts, please, and then we'll go to Etienne.
Yeah, I think I can remember 5 years ago when I pivoted from a consultant to a trainer because of COVID. Some of the more practical aspects, I think, is my training is 2-hour sessions. Have I got enough slides to fill that session, or have I got too many? What have I got on the slides? Yeah, how do I deliver this? Confidence, yes, is an issue. And the other thing is, and I think maybe the question might be asked later on, is how do I get myself out there? How do I get myself marketed to be a trainer, having only just started, with no track record?
Understand that. Yeah, absolutely understand that. And timing is very important, isn't it? And the pace at which you guide the learning through, because if people have allocated one day or half a day or 3 days even, getting through it all in that time is actually super important, making sure that you cover all of the things that need to be covered. So thank you, Ron. Great point. Etienne, your thoughts, please. Then we'll go to Mart.
Yeah, I think the one of the biggest challenges for me was that little thing called imposter syndrome. I just, for me, it was a very real thing when I first became a trainer. I knew my stuff, and people recognized that I knew my stuff, but I didn't. I didn't feel that I was the right person to be doing it, and so that also got in the way of the confidence initially. But I think if you're able to meet the requirements to become a trainer, and there are strict requirements, as you well know, if you're able to jump through those hurdles, then you're not being let loose in front of a class without that knowledge and that ability to transfer skills. And so I think you need to learn to recognize that in yourself. And that was a big hurdle for me when I first became a trainer.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's a little bit like learning to fly a light aircraft, generally, or drive a car. Generally, you need to be accompanied at the beginning. You need somebody next to you, kind of giving you these, what to do next, and so on. And in fact, if you think about learning to drive a car at first, it feels overwhelming. You have to coordinate hands and feet and brain and eyes and ears and all manner of different things. And yet, after a little while, it becomes almost automatic. You can process all of that information and you feel so much more confident. But at first, you may well need an experienced person at your side as your wing person, if you like, to be able to help you on your way. Thank you very much indeed, Etienne.
I was going to say, now I can drive a car and listen to the radio at the same time, but I can't train and listen to the radio at the same time, unfortunately.
Oh, that's impossible, I'm afraid. No. There's a limit. Now, the ladies might be laughing because, generally speaking, there is the thought that says that women can multitask a little bit better than men. But I don't know how really true that is, but I agree with you. Your focus needs to be on the class in front of you. So thank you very much indeed, Etienne. Mart, your thoughts, and then we'll go to Cindy.
Speaking of multitasking, indeed, I think your main focus always should be that you pay attention to your students' body language and, of course, their level of engagement. And what is distracting then, when you're start to train is your knowledge level. Do I have it all in my head, or do I still need to look at my notes? And that, of course, you can overcome by practicing. And the other thing that can be distracting is, so how do I come across? What is my body language? And for that, I always recommend, make a recording and look at yourself and listen to yourself, how you come across. And then, of course, practice to refine that.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. It's rare that we listen to ourselves back again. So it is good practice, I think, to rehearse a little bit and, put your phone camera on, for a little while, just pointing at you, and then replay that. And you'll soon pick up on those little idiosyncrasies that we all have and we all use in our language and the way in which we engage with others, and get some coaching points from that. Thank you very much indeed. And Cindy, now you posed this question for the panel. So I think it's only fair that we come back to you at the end and kind of say, what are your thoughts on those common challenges?
Thank you so much. And thank you to the fellow panelists. You've all actually taken every point that I've wanted to mention. However, I do want to add that in the beginning, when you're starting out, it's really important that you capture and maintain participant engagement. Oftentimes, we can feel a little challenged, particularly if it's a longer session or maybe if you're covering a complex topic. But you can incorporate various interactive activities such as case studies, role plays, quizzes, group discussions, etc. I think also what is important is that we remain adaptable to different learning levels. People walk into the room, do they have prior knowledge and experience? Are they there because they have to be there and they're forced to be there? Or are they there because they want to actually learn and they are open to it? So what are the barriers to learning that we are facing? And oftentimes, I think one of the core things that we need to do as trainers is balance flexibility and structure. We're going to have, people talk a little bit longer than what was anticipated. There was a perturbing question. But I think finding the right balance between providing that structure and allowing flexibility in a training session can be challenging for new trainers, but it's like a dance. We've got to strike that balance and establish those clear learning objectives.
I agree with that, and I have to say, throughout my career delivering mostly functional training around systems and processes and these kinds of things, I never got that sort of John Travolta moment where the entire audience was grouped around in a circle, clapping one or two participants in the middle. That never actually happened. Doesn't actually happen in real life, okay? Only in the movies. But I do think that you're right. It is a dance. You need actually to bring people with you. And that's a blend of art and the science, and getting that pacing spot on is a really, really important thing to do. Well, thank you, Cindy, for a great question to start off the show. And thank you to the panel as well for some amazing answers. Now, if you're in the audience, thank you for joining us. LinkedIn was a little bit late on parade today, didn't actually give a notification, but the audience is growing now online. So a warm welcome to you all. Please do introduce yourselves in the chat. Tell us your name, the city from where you're joining, and also put a question into the chat, and then Ella will pick it up from there and bring it into the panel. All right, so please do that, and then we'll come back around in a couple of minutes and do some shout outs for everybody in the audience. In the meantime, though, Suchitra, if we can, let's take our next question for the panel, please.
So our next question is from Ron. People have a diverse range of learning styles. Example, visual, auditory, read, write, etc. How much time should you devote trying to please everyone?
Pleasing everybody or making progress, this is always a fine balance, isn't it, really? So we want to be inclusive. We want to think about others. Johann, in your experience, how do you kind of judge, if you like, if you're getting that right?
Yeah, it's difficult sometimes depending on what you're busy teaching. So foundation level stuff tends to be a little bit theoretical. And it's really difficult to engage with kinesthetic learners. I think it's important for a trainer to be able to learn to read their audience, to see when the little light goes on, and then to use various methods to try and get the message across. As I say, specifically for kinesthetic learners, it's really difficult in a classroom setting. They really they learn by doing stuff, and just regurgitating what's on the slides is not helpful. So giving examples, making things practical, asking them about their experiences, relating the theory back to experiences, all of those things are things that you can do to help the learner get the most out of the learning engagement.
Thank you very much, Johann. Great advice there. Cindy, your thoughts, please. Then we'll go to Mart.
Thank you so much, Nick. So while it's important to acknowledge and to accommodate diverse learning styles to create this inclusive learning environment, it's also essential that we do recognize it may not always be feasible or necessary to cater for every single individual preference at all times. So what we can do is strive for a more balanced approach. So really trying to understand our audience before we are designing our training, because this is helpful to assess their learning preferences if it's possible. I do believe, and I agree with Johann, we need to incorporate variety, visual aids, diagrams for the visual learners, verbal explanations, discussions for the auditory learner, hands-on activity for the kinesthetic learner. And maybe even written resources that learners can read and write. But I think at the heart of everything, to remain flexible and adaptable, and I think these words will come up quite often in today's session, we can incorporate all of these things when it's feasible without compromising the overall session objectives.
Yeah, indeed. I think it's increasingly important as well when we're delivering courses using online platforms that we allow people the time and the opportunity to make those physical notes as they go. Many people commit to memory by writing longhand notes, and allowing people to do that and pacing ourselves so that they're able to do that is very important. And often, whilst they're doing that, they're not going to be looking at the camera lens. So they're not going to be looking at you. So as a trader, you may feel, oh, they're doing their online shopping. Actually, there may well not be. They may be just trying to write down the key points that you've just made and that you're trying to highlight to them. So very important that we actually think about the medium that we're using, as well as giving and affording the participants an opportunity to reflect their own learning style. So thank you very much indeed, Cindy. Mart, your thoughts, then we'll go to Etienne.
Since the majority of people learn best through visuals, they need to see images, pictures. Definitely, I insert those quite a bit. Have them tell stories, those images, which also resonate. And then let's never forget, there's this huge resource out there. It's called YouTube, with so many video clips that we could actually pull from. And I've learned they are so engaging. I mean, that draws the students' attention, as in what they're used to watching movies, right? So a little clip of somebody presenting or showing something can be enormously powerful, again, because most of us learn visually.
I completely agree. When a good movie comes out, I don't know, I'm going to pick on the Mission Impossible series, okay? Somebody produces the trailer and they come up with this very dramatic kind of turn. In this series, Mission Impossible 5, you're going to hear from. And they play those highlights at fast pace and speed, kind of through. And that story gets you hooked, doesn't it? And it encourages you to go and watch the full movie, And then when you come out afterwards, you think, well, I saw the whole thing in the trailer. But never mind, it engages you and it gives you that opportunity to follow the story through in the longer version. So it's a really important technique, storytelling. Thank you, Mark. Great point. Etienne, your thoughts, please, and then Sarah.
Yeah, I think a lot of the points have been made already, but find balance. And I quite liked your example of the trailer. One of the things that I like to spend a little bit of time doing is having a look at the kind of beginning of a section or a module and say, right, this is what is coming, and kind of run through the highlights, and then I can build on those as I go. And then a point that Johann made that I think also just want to kind of emphasize is the idea of using your own practical examples, but also asking people to contribute their own. So I'll come up with an example of whatever it is that I'm talking about and say, right, can anyone think of an example in their own experience? And even though you may not be able to be hands-on in the classroom, you can think back to a time where you experienced something similar, and you might not be experiencing it in the classroom, but at least you're getting an opportunity to kind of remember experiences.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Getting the course participants engaged and thinking about how could you illustrate this? Have you ever seen this before? Have you witnessed this before? Is a fabulous technique for bringing that kind of content to life. Thank you very much indeed, Etienne. Really good point. Sarah, your thoughts, please.
I think it's really important to consider each range of learning styles. I think it's essential. And I think it also relates back to the energy that your delegates are going to be able to have in relation to their learning style. I'm fortunate because the training I deliver incorporates Myers-Briggs, and I do it early on, so I know all of my audience. So I kind of can use that. But whether I do or I don't use that, whether I'm classroom delivery, online virtual delivery, I very much have the balance. I have the slides when needed, but also know your content, know your stuff, because I have the slides off the majority of the time. When we're having a discussion, they are not there. They're there purely for the visual when needed. I also make sure my delegates have time to read some information, to digest. For those that like to write, I incorporate that as well. And like Mart said, I also use YouTube videos sometimes because they're kind of great for me as well. I'm sure my voice, all day, even though actually they do a lot of the talking. So just a few different things there.
Brilliant. Great ideas, great thoughts. Now, Ron, you put the question to the panel about the range of learning styles and so on. What are your thoughts on this topic?
It's a challenge. Certainly, it's a slightly bigger challenge for online training than it is for face-to-face training. But from my perspective, I mainly deal with one-to-one training. So it's quite easy for me to, I can even ask what kind of learning style do you like, and make allowances for that. But I do corporate training as well, and that's where the challenge comes in, because everybody obviously has different learning styles. And what you have to do, I think someone before mentioned balance. I think that's the key. Get the balance right, and make sure, as an example, you have enough information on your slides to get over what you want to get over for those who don't want to make notes, as an example.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think it's important, going back to how human beings grow up and develop. And, in very early years education, most children who are pre-reading age, the books and the stories are all highly illustrated, and they have different textures and different colors and different noises to go along with interacting with those materials and exploring the environment and starting to build up comprehension and understanding and recognition of different symbols and different sounds. And then we move on to using the written words as labels, and then we build from labels into experience and so on and so on. So it's a long, long journey. And that deep sense of being able to recognize shapes and pictures stays with us throughout our lives. We rarely actually read everything in front of us. What we do is we scan it. And our brain seems to fill in the blanks for us. And I'm very pleased that it does, because otherwise every meeting we would be in would take 3 weeks. So it's important that we recognize as educators, I think, that fundamental principle that seeing and doing is a big part of how people learn. And language is actually a secondary element to it. So very good. Thank you very much, panel. And thank you, Ron, for a great question and getting our brains thinking. Now, let's move on, if we can, Suchitra, and we'll take our next question to the panel.
Our next question is a live question from Beena Champaneria. How will AI impact or assist in training delivery?
It's a great, timely question, Beena, and thank you for joining the audience today. So lovely to see you online, and thank you for putting the question into the panel. Let's start off with Mart, if we can this time. What are your thoughts on how AI is going to impact?
Two things come to mind. One is AI can now take notes for you, whatever is spoken in the class. Although I'm not a huge fan of that, I always learn more from my own notes than notes from taken with somebody else, but it is there. The other thing, especially since, we're talking about starting a career as a trainer, you always wonder, what questions can I expect? So how do I best prepare for the possible questions that may come at me? Or what are the questions that I should ask my students, to make them think? I think AI can be very helpful generating these questions for you to prepare, but also to ask.
Thank you very much indeed. It's a good point, isn't it? Because it's the act of the note-taking that commits things to memory, and whether you're doing that with a pencil or an electronic pencil with an iPad or something, or indeed a keyboard. So it's important to participate in that. Otherwise, it's unlikely to stick, if you like. Thank you very much indeed. Ron, your thoughts, please.
Yes, I mean, I've just delivered an AI versus change management to a PMI chapter in Africa, and it touched on training. Because training is obviously part of change management. And I must admit, I haven't looked at it in detail. I have the impact of AI on change management, but not on training, but I will do because it's obviously a key part of what I do now. But I think it eventually will have a significant impact in terms of, as you said, the questions, designing training programs even, and maybe even, allocating schedules, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a whole range of things that AI can do. And I think it will have a profound impact on training in the future.
Thank you very much indeed. I'll come back to exploring some of those manifestations in a few moments. Sarah, your thoughts, please, and then we'll go to Johann.
I don't pretend to be an expert on AI. Interestingly, delivering last week, change management, one of the delegates actually created a persona using AI because AI is a hot topic, and a few people, it's their vision, even though they don't understand why, as usual. It's part of the vision of the organisation yet, or that everybody certainly needs to be part of it. And I was quite surprised, actually, that the persona was actually very good. But I did say to all of my learners last week, just be wary to still use your common sense, because if people are using AI to create personas, for example, they're not given that thought process behind it, which kind of defeats the object, because they're not necessarily going to have that empathetic feeling around it that they need. So I think it's going to be useful, certainly for scheduling of things as a business owner, like Ron said, but always remember you've got to have that common sense to kind of challenge and know your stuff as well for it probably to be right.
Understand entirely. And I think it's going to become increasingly challenging to differentiate between and distinguish rather as a consumer of content online, what is real and what is generated, as the gap gets ever smaller between those two things. So authenticity is important, and being 100% human is going to be important. And that's a hallmark, I think, for the future. Thank you, Sarah. Johann, and then Ron, please.
I think there's an opportunity for us to be able to have a deeper understanding of the needs of our customers. So, for instance, we can personalize content by looking at social media posts that somebody made, or emails that they've sent, or and use that to get to good content. But the negative of it is if you, and I've seen a lot of people doing it lately, asking AI to write training material. I think that's a really bad idea. Yes, you might get the aggregate of what's out there, but how do you know how good or appropriate that is? So awesome tools, but be very careful. Yeah.
Indeed. Thank you very much indeed, Johann. Etienne, your thoughts, please. Then we'll go to Cindy.
Yeah, I think AI is an incredible tool that we can use for amazing things. And I think we can use AI to allow us to do things better. The one area that I find very useful practically myself is when recording e-learning content. I'm very uncomfortable recording my own voice. And instead of take 2001, I now use an AI voice to read my script, and so that's made that a little bit easier for me. I can't afford a voiceover artist, so, and these days you get some incredible, very real sounding AI voices, and so I'm making use of that. And one thing I'm looking forward to, and I don't believe it exists yet, but I think it is coming soon, is being able to use AI to make e-learning content a lot more interactive and a lot more engaging and a lot more customized to the individual learner. So I'm looking forward to a day where e-learning is no longer just a series of presentations and videos, but actually it's an engaging interactive tool where the learning content itself adapts itself to the learner over time. And I'm really looking forward to watching how AI contributes to this space.
Yeah, indeed. And I think now there are a number of platforms that offer an ability for you to clone your own voice. And so you're able to build a co-pilot, if you like, if I can borrow that phrase. So apologies to Microsoft there. But you can build your own large language model based on your own content. And those kind of closed LLMs with generative AI, with voice cloning and so on, can provide a small instructional design house actually with a brand identity which is very strong and quite appealing. I do think that the cautionary notes that everybody is sharing are very important. So do look carefully at the structure and the governance around any platform that you might be using, particularly when it comes to things like image or voice cloning, as you want to make sure that your intellectual property and your own voice is protected and there is real strong governance around it. Cindy, your thoughts on the impact of AI, please.
Thank you so much. And I'm specifically looking at the part of the question that says that can impact or assist training delivery. I do believe, and I agree with Etienne, that personalized learning is definitely something that AI can offer, because the AI algorithm can analyze, learner data such as their performance metrics, their preferences, their learning styles. Then we can deliver personalized learning experiences, especially in the e-learning space. And when we are tailoring content, the pacing, the assessments to individual needs, we can use AI to optimize those learning outcomes and engagements. But I agree with what Johann said. We cannot use AI to create and design a learning event or a training material. The human factor needs to be in there. We also have adaptive learning systems. I mean, AI is all about that. They can dynamically adjust the difficulty levels and the contents of training modules, especially in e-learning. An app you may want to consider using is EdApp. There is a free version of it available as well if you are creating e-learning material. And of course, it's important that we ensure that participants receive targeted instructions, but support as well to address their specific learning gaps and challenges. So AI is fantastic. It's a wonderful tool. It's not going anywhere. But I do believe the human factor, is a very important part of what we do as trainers.
Absolutely right. Yes. I mean, we need to make sure that we're enhancing the learning experience, and that is a very human to human activity to do. And the computers can assist in that process, but they ought not to be the primary, source of everything and the primary design element, I don't think. But lots of opportunity to explore that capability kind of as we go. Simulations are a super important way, or gamification, if you want to use that phrase, of bringing content to life and putting people and immersing them in, particularly those learners who are perhaps learning a little faster than some other members of the class. And for you to be able to differentiate the pace and offer those, on top form extension content, and also those, who are struggling with it, some reinforcement content, simulations are a great way to be able to reinforce that learning and bring everybody up to the same benchmark. Thank you very much indeed, Bina. Great question. And thank you also, panel, for focusing on different aspects of that question as we went through. Excellent. I can see more people have been joining online, so we're just going to do a quick shout out to a couple of those, if we can do. Shannon Conley joins from North Carolina in the USA. So welcome, Shannon. Early for you, actually, today. So thank you for joining. I hope that we're not disturbing your sleep too much. But a very beautiful state indeed. The heel, was it heel tar state? Can't quite remember now. Mart might be able to correct me if I've got that wrong. It is the heel tar state. Thank you very much indeed. North Carolina, welcome to you. Zolani joins as well from Gauteng in South Africa. So really great to have you on the team today. Again, Zolani, thank you for joining us today. I agree with you. It's a very promising and insightful session. So brilliant to have you online. And we'll take one more if we can. Just want to give a bit of a shout out to Bina, who asked a question a little bit earlier. And then I think, Suchitra, we should move on because we've got some live questions stacking up for the panel to answer.
Yes, we do. We have a live question from AO. How do you reinforce the subject while coaching experts in the topic? And how do you ensure trainers of the organization collect feedback for improvement?
All right. So we've got several things going on here, haven't we? So sometimes as an education professional, we're not necessarily the subject matter expert in the room, because in the room, we might have people who understand the subject and they understand the vertical industry in which they work and their own domain. Johann, you've worked with a number of different organizations across the years where governance and domain expertise is highly valued. How do you manage this kind of situation?
I think the first thing is to acknowledge is if you don't know, acknowledge that. If you so try and relate your experiences, but engage with your audience and get them to help the rest of the class. But I think this is coaching, so this is most probably one-on-one. But guide them in terms of making their experiences more practical, more useful. The second part of that question is actually, I think, important for me. Is quite often we engage with organizations and they say, yeah, but we want feedback. I mean, but coaching is a trust relationship. And you must be very careful if you agree with an organization who wants feedback, that feedback doesn't jeopardize the trust relationship between you and the coachee.
Yeah, absolutely right. Getting that feedback packaged so that it's fair and preserves anonymity, if that is an element that needs to be preserved, is a real skill in itself. We might come back to that second element in a few minutes as the panel consider that. Cindy, your thoughts, please. Then we'll go to Sarah.
Thank you so much. So I recognize two parts to this question. The first thing I want to do is just distinguish that coaching and training are not the same things, nor is facilitation. And I think we can explore that in another question later on. But in terms of coaching, when we are reinforcing the subject matter, I think it's important that we include peer discussions and collaboration, and maybe even some problem solving or application exercises. Where we can engage with those experts, the case studies, the application to the relevant topics. This hands-on approach can really allow people to apply their knowledge to practical sessions that will reinforce understanding and skills. And then in terms of ensuring trainers collecting feedback and improvement, I think it's feedback is a gift, and we can only grow and learn from feedback. So having feedback mechanisms in place, such as post-training surveys, evaluation, focus groups, to gather information, maybe doing a 360, I think all of those things are important. But also then we can look at data analytics and insights if you are in an online space like e-learning, for example. And of course, we need to have this ethos of continuous improvement. So, like I said, feedback is a gift. So whether it's good, bad, or ugly, take that feedback as, a place of learning for yourself as a trainer.
Yeah, indeed. I think that you do have one area of expertise which is going to eclipse in this situation your superpower. What is your superpower? Well, it's a combination of two things, in essence. One is you don't work for that organization. That's the first thing. So you're the voice that can be listened to externally. And secondly, if you're an expert in how people learn and you focus on that, then that actually can help others both, seek feedback, take the feedback in the spirit in which it is intended for growth and further development, and then put that into practice. So all good points. Thank you very much indeed. Sarah, your thoughts, please. Then we'll go to Rob.
So a couple of things, but firstly, not everybody who thinks they're an expert is an expert, so always be a little bit mindful of that as well. But going back to what a couple of the panelists said, you do need to give them the opportunity to share that knowledge and accept, like say, you are not necessarily the most expert in that room. But if we're talking about people that do believe themselves as expert, you need to create the environment, because they may not be actually open to having the sometimes wanting to speak up in fear of actually looking vulnerable or putting their hands up and it not actually being the right kind of answer. So you need to really create the right environment to enable that sharing. So actually the experts feel that it's great, that they can share information, and actually they're not being judged whilst doing it. They've got that unconditional, positive regard. With regards to the trainers, I have a lot of trainers also work for me, and it goes to my trust with them. They know that actually every bit of feedback that I might receive, we would have that open conversation. It would be perceived as, what can we learn from? But also shy away from these surveys that typically say, how would you rate your trainer, particularly 1 to 10? I've seen a lot of that. How is the environment? Yes, they're important, but think about actually just opening the conversation with your learners rather than specific questions that actually probably aren't going to give you a great lot of detail that you really need to know.
I think you've hit on something which is, really, really important. Despite those sorts of post-course evaluations going out of fashion in more than 20 years ago, they still are out there. And you get more insight as an education professional into what the lunch was like from those, rather than what did people actually learn. They'll talk at length about the catering, and then they seem to skip over and say, the course was great. It was fine. So you get 2 words about the course and paragraphs upon paragraphs about the catering. So I really agree with you there. Ask better questions and you get better answers. Thank you very much indeed, Sarah. Let's go next to Ron, and then from Ron to Etienne.
The word expert always worries me. I don't think everyone is an expert in everything, to be honest. So you will always have something to give to experts. And the way I would do it is you have anecdotes that you can talk about that, is to do with the subject. You can tell your stories, a little bit like anecdotes, but a bit longer. And you can have conversations with people. And that's the way I think you can reinforce with the subject matter with the experts. The second part of the question is an interesting one. I'm a great believer in feedback on anything. Metrics is a big deal for me. Yeah. So I know I normally would prefer to get training feedback almost immediately after the training has been delivered. Yeah? And that can be built into whatever mechanism you're using to train people. You can't log out of this system until you actually provide feedback. Yeah? So you get it straight away, because what you can do then is, if there's anything that is not necessarily as good as it should be, you can take action immediately, rather than delivering it again the next day and then worrying about it a few days later. So yeah, it's both important.
Thank you very much indeed. I do think that that's really good guidance, is to seek feedback as you go. If things aren't right on lunchtime of day 1 and nobody says anything, then it's not helpful to be told it after the course is finished. You can fix something on Monday of day 1 for the rest of the delivery, but it's difficult to fix it after the fact. So it's very important that you do establish that right from the offset. Etienne, what are your thoughts about reinforcing the subject when coaching experts and ensuring that trainers do collect feedback for improvement?
Well, I want to focus on the first part of that, the idea of kind of coaching and training experts. As a trainer, and everyone all of the panelists who have been in the classroom will know that there isn't a single delivery where you don't walk away having learned something new yourself, just from having been asked questions. You have to think things through and think of things in new ways, or broach the topic from a slightly different angle. And when we're dealing with experts, we can do exactly the same with them. ask them questions that help them look at things from a slightly different perspective. And there isn't, even if you're learning from yourself, you're still learning. And I think it's really important that we recognize that we can teach by asking questions.
Absolutely right. The power of a well-phrased question delivered within a safe environment is amazing. It can transform and pivot an engagement from being simply instructional through to being a real life learning experience for everybody, and bring the whole subject matter to life and go beyond the present moment of the curriculum, if you like, and start thinking about how we might leverage the knowledge and apply it in our own work context and all of these good things. So great advice, panel. And a brilliant question, Ao. Thank you so much for posting it today. Suchitra, time is kind of working against us. So I think panel will take 2 or 3 answers to this one, but we need to pick up the pace if we're going to fit it in. May we have our final question, please, Suchitra?
So the final question is from John Wharton. Based on the lessons you have learned, what advice would you give to your younger self when you decided to become a trainer?
Okay, advice to our younger selves. Now, Cindy, I don't think you're, and Sarah, the two of you don't really fit into this category, but try and imagine if you can. All right, you being a little bit older. Anyway, Cindy, start us off, and then we'll go to Rob.
Thank you so much. You'd be surprised at my age, I must tell you. I'm close to 50. I would say embrace continuous learning. I would encourage my younger self to really prioritize continuous learning and professional development, because the training field is so dynamic and ever evolving that we need to stay updated on best practices, emerging trends, new technologies, methodologies, theories, etc. It's also important to build diverse skill sets. That you go beyond just the subject matter experts. I think we need strong communication skills. Yes, those facilitation abilities, empathy, adaptability, all of those things that we need, but build those diverse skill sets.
Thank you very much indeed. Ron, your thoughts? Then we go to Sarah.
I don't have a younger self, I'm afraid. So, okay. So all I'm going to say is more preparation. As easy as that.
Right, very good. Prepare well, and things generally do go well. I agree with that. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Sarah, your thoughts? Then we'll go to Etienne.
My favourite mantra is tomorrow is another day. And you're going to have days where you're going to leave thinking, oh my goodness, was I the best that I could have been? But all I can say is pick yourself up. You will have made a difference for somebody, and just keep going. And reach out for support as well if you're feeling like that, because there will be people around you that would be happy to give help and support.
Super important advice. Thank you very much indeed, Sarah. It can be a lonely time, actually, sometimes, especially if you're living away from home and you're moving from one client to another and so on. So it's really good to, have a coach, have a mentor yourself, and touch base with them throughout. Totally agree with that. Etienne, final thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think for me, it really is about the self-confidence and the doubting yourself. I think it's important that you recognize that in that room, you know what you're talking about. You wouldn't be in front of the room if you didn't. And the rest of the room respects you for your knowledge. It's time for you to do the same.
Indeed. Thank you very much indeed, panel. And thank you to John for putting that question into the panel today. We really do appreciate it. Now then, let's get some feedback ourselves, actually, on today with our closing remarks on the panel. Sarah, if I may, I'll come to you first, and then Etienne.
Thank you. A wonderful panel. I know I always say that, but it's true. You always learn something. And to those, in the audience that are thinking of becoming a trainer, if I'm allowed to say, please actually reach out, because I am chair of ASTA, Association of Training Excellence, and actually, is something that we're striving for, to find some really good trainers.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. All of the panel's LinkedIn profiles are on the international.com website. Just look for events and you'll find today's event, and then you can connect with Sarah and all the members of the team. Etienne, your thoughts, please. Then we'll go to Rob.
Yeah, so I had a conversation with a student recently who said to me that one of the things I do to make training really engaging is help them feel like I'm learning alongside them. And I don't know how I do that, but if you can get that right, apparently it works.
Indeed. It's like the meeting where you walk side by side rather than sitting down facing each other across the table at a very deeper level of understanding and dialogue, just doing that walking side by side. So totally agree with that. Thank you, Etienne. Ron, your thoughts, please, and then we'll go to Johann.
Yeah, it's been a slight diversion for me this session. Normally I'm on project manager or change management sessions, but this time I'm on the training session because obviously that's what I do now. And it's been a pleasure, absolute pleasure. I think that the panel have been great. The questions have been great. And I look forward to the next one. And very quickly, Etienne said something about being side by side. I remember getting some feedback from an individual that said, although he trained me online, it felt like he was sitting next to me.
There you go.
Lovely.
There you go. How wonderful to receive that kind of feedback. Thank you very much indeed. Johann and then Mart.
Yeah, it's the most meaningful thing that you can do is to help somebody be more. And if you want to be a trainer, remember your job is to help somebody be more every day.
Completely agree with that. Thank you, Johann, for summarising it so beautifully. When we were little, remember the excitement with which we were able to learn to master riding a bicycle without the trainer wheels on the sides. You know, that moment of freedom when suddenly it all clicks, you know, and without having that guide, that trainer, that facilitator, that would never have happened. So really great advice. Thank you, Johann. Mart, your thoughts, please, and then we'll go to Cindy.
Just to build on that, this quote from Marion Wright Edelman said, "Education is improving the lives of others and for leaving your community and world better than you found it."
Marvellous. Thank you very much indeed. Leave the world a little better than you found it. Cindy, your thoughts, please, and then we'll hear from Suchitra.
Thank you so much. I believe that change fuels curiosity. So let's stay curious and let's welcome this with open arms as we continue to grow and evolve as trainers, that we must embrace new challenges, explore innovation and different approaches, but remain open to learning ourselves from every experience that we see. Because if we let curiosity be our guide on this dynamic journey, we will discover and develop ourselves, but also offer a really insightful training delivery for our participants as well.
Thank you very much indeed. And Suchitra, final thoughts on today?
It's been a great show, Nick, and thank you to our panelists and of course our viewers. We have a lot more questions which have not been answered yet, so we will definitely pick up this topic once again. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Adine. Thank you. Great job to the whole team online, from Ella and Shanice and everybody who was supporting today, through to Suchitra as well for bringing those questions through to the panel. On that note, I'd like to thank our producers online today for your contributions. It's been really wonderful to see you all and welcome you all. And Shannon, thank you. I did get the Tar Heel state almost right. Quite trip off my tongue, but appreciate you jumping in there as well. So thank you very much indeed to everybody. And on behalf of the producers panel, well done. Great job again. We've all learned a lot today from each other about how to approach education and training. And we'll look forward to connecting with you as a professional connection on LinkedIn for further growth, mentoring and development in the future. So very well done. Now, over on the APMG International website, you can search for the answers to more than 2,300 questions that have been previously asked and answered on Level Up and all of the other different types of recordings that APMG International does. It connects you totally free of charge with experts from all over the world. So there's a huge value in that. And don't forget, you may also listen to the audio versions of the shows on your preferred podcast platform. Coming up on Friday, the 22nd at 2 p.m. here in the UK. We're still on GMT just right now until the end of the month. We're going to be looking at the world of projects, and in particular, building a career inside the project management office in a PMO. Monday the 25th, it's the turn of business analysis and looking at those sorts of roles. It's always great value, that show, and one that personally I always enjoy. And then Friday the 5th of April, we'll be moving forwards. We'll have put the clocks forward into the summertime, and we'll be looking at developing your career as a change management professional. So do put that date in your calendar, and remember that the UK jumps forwards an hour at that point. So it'll be 2 p.m. BST. So do consider that. All right. Excellent. Well, look, thank you very much, everybody. Don't forget, head over to the YouTube channel right now and give this video a like, please, and subscribe. It really does take just a moment, and it helps the channel out tremendously. And ask us, and we will, of course, send you a personal summary of what's coming up and how you too can join us here on the panel and level up your career with APMG. Thanks very much, everybody. Take care. We'll see you next time.